All right, we are recording. May begin.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for your time today. We're really excited to come to you all here at CraneCo to present our solution for your next growth project. My name is Ali Kassam. I'm joined by three of my associates today, Nick Carpenter, Kyle Sheeran, as well as Catherine Hain. Today at CraneCo, we're seeing that there's a major growth process, specifically in the driving the engineered materials for future growth. And we're really excited to present our methods today or our recommendation. We think this all-in approach can be about 50% growth for the company overall over the next 10 years. I'd like to talk over the agenda of what we'll be speaking about today. So number one, we want to talk over the context and the challenge, go over the recommendation, look over the three parts of the engineered material module, and that's modular buildings, recreational vehicles, and transportation. Talk over the financial risks and impact, talk over the execution, and answer any questions that you all might have. So first, let's talk about where we are at CraneCo today. This quote rang true to us as soon as we saw it, and we know that's a bedrock of the principles here at CraneCo. It was said by R.T. Crane in 1855, and the parts that we took most from it were the honesty and fairness, liberal and just, and the whole mind toward business. These were bedrocks in our recommendations that we also took into our own principles for our recommendations. Where we see CraneCo today, it is a $2.78 billion company that is engineering focused. It comes from all four segments: fluid handling, payment and merchandising technology, aerospace and electronics, as well as engineered materials. So the question might be asked immediately, why focus on engineered materials as the growth process being the smallest part of the business right now? We looked at three different metrics to determine what exactly would be the growth for the future. That is it a high growth market? Does it have high year-over-year sales growth? And can we be a market leader in this segment? If you look at engineering materials, they're number 2 in growth market, number 1 in year-over-year sales, and also a market leader. This led us to believe that the growth process here was tremendous, and we thought our early projections said about 8 times growth in engineering materials that we could drive for the business. I'd like to get into a little bit of a high-level recommendation for now. For engineering materials, we saw 7% sales growth throughout the 2017. A lot of that was driven behind fiber reinforced polymer. That category overall is about 11.3% projection growth through 2025. It is also the bedrock of engineering materials here at CraneCo. Of course, that works on 3 different spectrums: recreational vehicles, so RVs, building products, so home, municipal, etc., and transportation. We have solutions in each one of these spectrums to go ahead and short-term and long-term build the business. The first one for recreational vehicles. We have a trade-up strategy. Crane Gold being the top tier of all 4 tiers that we have in recreational vehicle panels. We want to trade up manufacturers to that Crane Gold product as RVs become higher and higher quality as the years go on. For building products, we want to capitalize on modular building. More and more we see hospitals, schools being built with panels such as the ones that we provide, and we think this is a great situation to get in on that as well. And then lastly, automated trucks. What is currently a $0 billion industry will be a multi-billion-dollar industry in just the next 10 years. And CraneCo has a right to win in this space as time goes on over the next 10 years. Overall, the 10-year projection for this is a $4.4 billion NPV, which would lead to a 50% company growth if all 3 recommendations are taken and executed as we suggest. The last thing I would like to talk about is the market landscape. What you all have said in every company report for the last 10 years is there's a highly saturated marketplace. There are 2 main competitors that play in a lot of the same spaces. That's PCC and Ingersoll Brands. Both compete in a lot of the same spaces, compete with a lot of the same competition that you do. But we see 2 different defining factors that separate CraneCo. One of them is your quality and differentiation. Whether it's high quality products, tech differentiation, competitive prices, superior customer service, or delivery timing, CraneCo competes on all those extremely well and ahead of competition. But the second and most important thing is the 29 very strong patents that CraneCo has to give them the right to win in all of these spaces when it comes to this technology. So when it comes to fiber polymer, there's no one better than CraneCo, and we think that that really presents an argument of why we really don't need to worry about competition in the spaces that we're playing. And with that, I'd like to give it over to Catherine Hain to talk about our first 2 items.
Thank you, Ali. So our first recommendation as part of our three-part strategy to grow Cranco's business is in the modular building space. Right now, Cranco operates within the construction space for traditional construction companies by providing their patented FRP panels for buildings for the paneling for walls for traditional construction space. The way that modular building companies differ from traditional construction is that they have these fabrication sites where they're creating homes and buildings in-house, and then they deliver them to the site where those buildings will be located. So currently, Cranco operates in the commercial, industrial, and municipal building spaces. As you can see, the growth opportunities for these markets are fairly limited and slightly poor in the municipal space. Whenever my team and I approach this business problem, we are primarily focused on finding the industry trends and major market growth drivers within engineering materials, and so our research led us to the $157 billion modular building construction industry. And this is a projection of over the next 5 years in 2023. So that's the opportunity that we're going after. And along with this, it's a 6.9% annual growth rate for the modular building industry. So it's a very high opportunity and high growth industry. And we're ready to help Cranco leverage its strengths for this market. So because Cranco is already competing in construction spaces, there are a lot of similar business models and strengths that you already have that will be great competitive advantages for you in the modular building space. First of all, Cranco is a market leader with construction. So your FRP panels are already high positioned in this space. You have the expertise, engineering knowledge, the technical differentiation, sales channels, and many customer and manufacturer relationships that you can already leverage in the construction space. Secondly, Cranco competes with economies of scale. You already have the production capacity and the supply chain capacity to translate to the new market. And Cranco's third competitive differentiation in this space is your patented technologies. The FRP panels are a very strong, unique product in the construction industry and will easily translate to modular construction companies. So the strategy that we recommend for Cranco is to modify your selling strategy to target modular construction companies and capitalize on the growing market. In summary, the two-pronged approach would be to, first of all, like I said, optimize those selling and administrative costs, as well as supply chain and production capacity to meet the needs of the modular construction market. And secondly, you would want to target large-scale builders, as well as the who are in the retail, hospitality, education, and healthcare markets, because these are the industries that we see modular buildings being produced for the most. And if you follow this strategy, we project a $1.1 billion NPV for this first part. The second part in our strategy is focused on the recreational vehicle space, which makes up 55% of Cranco's sales within engineered materials. The RV space is looking great. It's growing at a really high rate due to a number of consumer trends. The first one is that consumers are frequently adopting more active and mobile lifestyles. So this leads them to purchase mobile homes in the RV space. And secondly, the baby boomers, which represents one of the largest consumer segments in history, is about to enter the retirement age. And this is the age at which most consumers purchase RV materials. So those are the main two drivers of the RV growth market. The RV Industry Association estimates that this market grew at 17.2% in 2017 based on the production of RVs. So these manufacturers are ramping up for this market growth. And this represents a 10.1% average year-over-year growth in the production of RVs over the past 5 years. So we're seeing pretty high and stable growth in this market. So in order for Cranco to capitalize on this market, we analyzed the sales growth compared to Cranco's sales. So the overall market growth for RVs, like I said, was 17% in the past year, whereas Cranco sales followed at 7%. And so if Cranco is providing the production materials for these RVs, and if they're growing at 17%, then Cranco should be much closer. So we've identified a $14 million opportunity gap here, and that's based on 10% of the $140 million RV production market. In order to grab more of this market share, we recommend that Cranco facilitates a trade-up within the consumer marketplace. And by this we mean influencing consumers to trade up to higher quality products as far as higher quality RVs, and this consumer demand will then drive manufacturers to produce higher quality RVs in order to meet the consumer trend. Therefore, our strategy for Cranco is to partner with high-end RV manufacturers and influencers in order to promote the Crane Gold product line, which is Cranco's highest product within their RV manufacturing space. In order to achieve this strategy, the first objective is to partner with a high-end RV manufacturer. And we targeted Winnebago as the best manufacturer for Cranco to go after first. And this is mainly due to, first of all, Winnebago is the #1 brand name among consumers today for RVs. Secondly, they rate highest quality and consumer perceptions based on a number of surveys. And third, Winnebago is really well aligned with Cranco's values because they also differentiate themselves in the marketplace by producing the highest quality products. The second objective in our strategy is to partner with the RV Industry Association. The RV Industry Association is the main source of news for consumers in the RV market, manufacturers, suppliers, regulators, and anyone who is searching for RV news and related topics on the internet. Because the RV Industry Association drives customer reviews, market analysis, and various impressions among the consumer population as well as the manufacturers, they're a great partner to help Cranco drive that industry demand or the consumer demand for high quality RVs, which will then drive the industry demand to produce those high quality RVs. Therefore, to summarize our strategy, first of all, Cranco should drive the industry to adopt higher quality materials in order to promote its Crane Gold product line. And secondly, Cranco should establish Crane Gold as the top tier must-have for consumers as well as manufacturers. And this will lead to an $849 million NPV. Now I'm going to pass it off to Nick to talk about the transportation market.
Thank you, Kat. Excuse me. So our third leg of our proposal is actually going to target a more long-term goal. So we're going to target the transportation market, which is a segment we already work in. Currently, we provide these fiberglass panels for trucks and trailers during their manufacturing process. So as you can see, we currently have 3.7 million drivers in the U.S. It's actually the occupation that employs the most people in the United States at about 1%. Their annual growth in this market is at about 6%, which is about $9 billion annually. And it's very entrenched into the U.S. economy, providing at least 70% of the U.S. freight is being moved by truck, which is a massive size of the portfolio, and it's only going to grow in the future. So moving forward, identifying this as being a huge market, we also noticed that upcoming was going to be a big revolution in this space in the introduction of automated trucks, which is going to cause companies to have to revamp and replace their entire fleets with automated trucks and trailers to go with it, which is going to represent a big transition in the space and allow for Cranco to grab a higher market share. So as this shows, this is the 2018 market currently. We represent a $28.3 million segment of this space, and the market is at about $1 billion right now. It's a highly segmented, highly competitive space currently because it's just been a long-term industry that's reaching maturity and has been in maturity for a long time. In the coming next 5 years, the market is actually going to expand threefold because representing all these firms having to replace their entire fleet and with autonomous vehicles. And we are recommending that Crane can position itself as the premier provider of material that is specifically marketed to provide the benefits that automated vehicles require. So we recommend investing $15 million in our research and development, which represents 25% of our current R&D budget. This will allow us to innovate a new fiberglass product which is going to be designed specifically for automated vehicles in mind. We're going to provide tests of that to the firms that are currently on the cutting edge of this development process, allow them to gain insights and data points on what the product is doing well for them and what it's failing to do, so that they can report that to us and we can continue to innovate this product for the future, so that when they finally reach the mass production side of their cycle, that we're going to be their premier partner already during the innovation process, and also the first person they think of to go to business and go to market with. So to reiterate, we plan to collaborate with firms to gain engineering and data insights for innovation via providing them with prototypes and working with them during development, and also leveraging our scale and our first mover advantage into this situation to build sustainable competitive advantage going forward into this and capture this large market share in this upcoming boom for trucks. And that represents a 2.5 billion NPV if we can position ourselves correctly to take over the market and take over a larger share with our first mover advantage. Now I'm going to hand it off to Kyle to move forward with financial impact and execution.
All right, thank you, Nick. Okay, as we talk about the financial impact, as an overview to recap, we discussed 3 different segments of the business that we're targeting. And we're planning to expand in modular building, RVs, and automated trucks. The NPVs of these individual segments roll up to a $4.4 billion NPV for Crane Co. in 10 years. As we take a look at our implementation timeline, we start with modular building. In Q1 of 2019, we plan to start building the relationships and building the sales strategy for marketing the fiberglass reinforced plastics necessary for modular building. We plan to then expand and continue to build these relationships, and at year 5, plan to roll out internationally, where we see a lot of opportunity within the market. Next is recreational vehicles. Our strategy puts an emphasis on approaching entities, specifically Winnebago and the RV Industry Association, and building relationships and partnerships with them so that we can leverage those partnerships into real dollars. We plan to be able to force ourselves or penetrate the market completely by year 5 of this process. And last, for our very long-term viewpoint, automated transportation. It's an industry that is bound to boom in the very near future, and it's very important that Crane Co. gets in on the front foot there. So our proposal has a heavy investment in R&D at the beginning of the process, which then allows us to build the relationships with manufacturers that we need, find the right products that manufacturers want, and be able to bring those to market and position ourselves to really win a significant portion of market share, leading to a full rollout within 10 years. So there are a lot of risks to consider when we came up with our recommendation. So we plotted our risks on a 2-pronged axis with severity and probability. So the most severe, one of the most severe risks that we looked at was modular building awareness. So one of the struggles that the industry has right now is that the awareness is fairly low, but that awareness really, we're able to mitigate that by having a long-term rollout plan and moving into an international space where awareness is low at a later date. And then one of the other things that we thought was very critical was working with Winnebago. So one of our big positions was finding a way to partner with Winnebago and providing them a portion of their materials. So we used sensitivity analysis when we came up with our projection, and we're very conservative with our estimate, and still we're able to generate a very positive NPV for the process. So to recap, we're targeting 3 different segments within the engineered materials segment of Crane Co. Right now, Crane Co. generates about $2.78 billion in revenue, which $275 million of that is made up in the engineered materials space. By following our proposal, we're saying that Crane Co. can build their revenue to $6.9 billion in 10 years and $1.9 billion in the engineered materials specifically, which represents $1.4 billion in contributed growth to Crane Co. and a total of 50% growth for the company as a whole. And with that, we're open to questions.
Thank you for your 3 recommendations. I might have missed it, but could you explain to me what exactly is automated trucks?
Sure. So essentially, right now we have a big portion of the way freight is moved in the U.S. is via obviously manned trucks, semi-trucks that are pulling trailers. So in the near future, we project that in a lot of articles that we found show that in the market, these trucks are going to be replaced by safer, more efficient, and better utilized trucks by having it run by an autonomous system with no driver. So that's the very long term, is having fully automated trucks. But in the near future, there's going to be semi-automated processes and trucks that still have a person in the cabin to take over when the driving conditions aren't appropriate for the computer to function successfully, and also in what they call platoons, which represents a human, almost like it's a semi-truck driven by a human, just like normal, and then it has a fleet of semi-autonomous trucks behind it that kind of mimic its movement, and so that's a medium step on the way there to the autonomous side. So that's going to come much sooner, where we're projecting fully autonomous trucks to be probably about 10 years out.
Let's stick on trucks for a minute. Walk me through the assumptions to get to the 2.5 billion. Again, what all has to happen. So we've got a $15 million R&D investment, if memory serves, and that is going to translate into a pretty hefty NPV. Take me through that.
Okay, sure. So as far as the assumptions, the big assumptions are the market share. So we were projecting at 20% if we can get in there early and make sure that we're positioning ourselves to have the product that is going to fit the need of that better than any of our competitors, because we're identifying it first. And then aside from the assumptions from that are that the government is going to allow for this. There's a lot of concerns regarding regulation and risk of losing such a high percentage of the workforce. But the federal government has actually already put in some policies in place to pave the way, and also a big reason why there's a lot of pushback right now is safety concerns. But the data so far has shown that the autonomous vehicles actually have a safety rating better than a standard driver. So the articles are going to hit the news when there is a wreck, but over time the data is going to show that they're safer off.
So what materials are you actually talking about making on the truck?
Sure. So it's essentially the plastic siding. So on trucks, it's a much smaller part of the revenue, but on the trailers, it's a massive size. We project 2% of the materials for the truck, or 2% of the total cost of the truck to be coming from our materials.
So the actual tractor, at the front of the vehicle,
right,
you're going to have
the fiberglass that is essentially the painted.
The body shell, all right?
Exactly.
So what is unique or different about that we're going to be able to capture 20% of the market share?
Sure.
That you think we're going to be able to get it?
Sure. So currently, the factors they worry about is durability and also lightweight, because the lighter weight you can have, the better fuel economy you can have, which is very important when you're moving such large distances and so much stuff all the time with trucks. So we recommend that our engineers can speak with these leading organizations and understand what their pain points are and exactly what they think, how lightweight can we go now that we're not having to transport a person. We may be able to have less durability on the side because we're not so much worried about the safety of someone in the cab. So we're going to be able to produce a lighter weight material and hopefully continue on our trend of developing patents in the space, so that we can continue to build a great product that's meeting the needs of these companies, but also patenting it so that we're building a sustainable growth for ourselves.
Who makes most of these truck bodies now?
Sure. So there's a variety of different truck manufacturing firms.
And what are they doing? Clearly, they've got to see this trend coming, right? So if you're in the truck industry, automated trucking is big, right? Everybody knows about it.
Right.
Why aren't they getting ahead of this already?
Sure. So, articles we found suggest that it's still somewhat far out. So we're kind of in that sweet spot where we're projecting that it's about to become a massive trend, and people aren't quite getting on board yet because it is somewhat uncertain in the future. So we're suggesting that the risk associated with investing the money sooner and obviously losing out on the ability to use that money elsewhere, we're recommending the risk associated with using the capital now is going to pay off in the future with these big dividends.
And to add on that, Nick, there's a difference between the projections between manufacturers of cars and suppliers of those materials that the manufacturers are using. So the car manufacturers such as GM, they're already ahead of their game. They're absolutely predicting this, and that's where we pulled a lot of our data and reports. But the suppliers, however, aren't totally on board yet. So that's where we're coming ahead of the market.
To transition to recreational vehicles, you guys mentioned that the growth looks really good there for a number of reasons, and you suggest that partnering with manufacturers and influencers. Can you dive in a little deeper on who the influencers are and how you will partner with them?
Yeah, do you mind if I cover that, Kat?
Of course.
Yeah, so the two main influencers that we mentioned were Winnebago as well as RVI, which is the Industry Association for Recreational Vehicles. Winnebago, we really felt aligned with our ideals, as Kat mentioned in her time earlier. We felt like quality was one thing that we could connect with them on, and quality is something that can be very important in the recreational vehicle space, both for millennials as well as baby boomers that are entering that retirement stage and buying it. But the number one source we found that people are going on when they first are looking to buy an RV is the RVI Industry Association. If you wouldn't mind pulling up the main next slide where we'll talk about that. The RVI is where if I'm looking for a safety or anything like that, about what RVs are the best. That's where I'm going, not only for what RV brand to buy, but what products in my RV should I have. Crane Gold being a very important part of that, if we're able to leverage RVI's association, then to post an article about Crane Gold is the standard, those types of things will do a lot for us to get in more in the marketplace, for Winnebago just to be the first brand that we work with so closely.
And to add to that a little bit, so when we looked at the various firms in the market, Winnebago again caught our eye because of the matching values, and we really do feel that our advantage as Cranco is having these really high-level engineers, and something we pride ourselves on is being a heavily engineering-based organization, is that we're going to be able to speak with Winnebago at a level where we really do match not just what we're saying. Is that it's easy to say we want to provide a high-value product to you, but to show over our history among all of our product lines that we're always positioned as such a high-value and high-quality competitor is going to really allow us to enter that space with them, and I think they're going to connect with us on a level that way.
So we'll stick with RVs. Talk about the sales force, right? So your strategy seemed heavily driven on the ability to effectively market and sell to RV manufacturers, right? So our equipment strategy. So a couple of questions there. How much of this is going to be the push strategy if you're going to companies like Winnebago versus how much you're marketing material and a pull strategy through things like the RV Industry Association? And then what do we need to do within our own marketing and sales organizations to position ourselves to be successful growing as much share as you're talking about needing here to hit your numbers?
Sure. So I can address how we're approaching the manufacturers and everything. I think that the idea here is to partner with Winnebago in the sense that they find our products, they're demanding our product from distributors. So we're still trying to maintain our distribution the way that it is now. We're trying to work more closely with these manufacturers specifically. The current channels seem to be working. I mean, and we're able to have a high level product that people do want and do demand. But what we're really trying to build is that like real clear name recognition, brand recognition. And so that's why we think that partnering with the RV Industry Association is how we build that the most clearly. They're able to influence the policy for RV, the customer decision making for RV. And if we can partner with them and have them talk about the quality of our product in a Winnebago, that the paneling or the polymer used in a Winnebago is of the highest quality because it's from Crane Co. That ups our ability and that ups our market share and brand awareness.
Okay, I got that, but I'm let's say we agree to the plan. Walk me through like step 1, step 2, step 3. Like, how do we partner with Winnebago? How do we go win that contract? And if Winnebago says no, who do we go to next, right? And then how do we partner with our VIA? I'm just a little lost on the how we're going to do this.
Yeah, so I think it's as simple as communication with these organizations. We know that we have relationships through distributors with these organizations, so there is a clear pathway. There is an additional step that we have to take, but we can gain the relationship directly to the manufacturers through our current distributors to try and build that relationship where we're talking about our product and our process and why it aligns so clearly with them. And like we said, Winnebago being focused, being the #1 brand as far as name recognition is why we targeted them. Winnebago is actually not the biggest player in the space. So they're Thor Enterprises, I believe is one of Thor Industries is the biggest player in the space, which actually they make 4 times as much revenue as Winnebago does every year. We felt that partnering with Winnebago based on their brand identity was the strongest play here. But there are other players that we identified as possibilities and even had bigger opportunities with those other players.
The only thing I'll add to that is when we talk about how we're going to partner with Winnebago is also our research and data that we have behind the RV industry. It's a growing industry. It's supposed to grow for the next 10 years substantially. So being able to provide some of the insights that we have across the marketplace and being able to partner with Winnebago on that front, bringing something to the table in terms of data, in terms of research, in terms of investment in their portfolio as well as theirs and ours, it's going to be a big part of that business strategy.
So I guess we'll transition to modular since we talked about the others. So what I noticed about that one, or that you guys shared with us, was that the growth's actually struggling in this area. And you talked about modifying a selling strategy for modular. Could you kind of dive a little deeper into that selling strategy for us?
Sure, I can talk a little bit about this one. So currently, what we're doing is we currently are pushing our product to distributors, and then these various companies that need the material come to the distributor and talk about what they need, and the distributors can recommend the product. So right now what we're suggesting is that we actually pivot from that and go directly to these modular builders, because this is an industry that's really dominated by some key players. And so being able to go to these builders and cut out the middleman that is the distributor, we're going to be able to provide them a product on a larger scale than would normally be allowed in normal construction, because in a normal construction, you have one site, you only want to take as much material as you need to that site, because you're going to have to transport it when the job is done if you didn't use it. Whereas these modular builders are actually doing their business in a warehouse, and so they can buy in bulk and you leverage our economies of scale to have a discount for us and kind of move that on as a discount to the consumer. So we're going to be able to actually sell in bulk, sell directly to the consumer, cut out the markup from the middleman, and be able to also gain a larger market share as we build this relationship with these various large builders, and so that they'll be more willing to come back to us in the future.
You're saying municipal, industrial, and commercial, as far as construction markets, don't operate that way, that modular does.
Right, so this is, yes, so the left side of this slide is current construction and traditional construction at the site, or what we're proposing is a fit more into the modular building industry, so we can sell more in bulk and directly to the large players.
Okay, thanks.
Back to RVs. You had one of your risks being RV growth, right? Of whether or not that actually manifests itself. Can you give me more of a long-term view of what the RV market has done in like economic downturns, for example? Like how volatile are those sales?
Sure, so I can talk to that.
And preferably going back prior to 2012. I'm thinking like 08, like when things went really nasty.
So actually, I looked all the way back to 2008, and there was a before 2008, there was a pretty large downturn in the purchase of RVs. But from 2008 till now, we've seen on average 12.5% growth in manufacturing and purchases year over year.
Well, versus what baseline? Versus 08 is your baseline?
Versus 08 is the baseline.
Okay, well, clearly then if it dropped off, obviously the growth afterwards is going to be massive. But like how bad did it drop off? So if you were to count like good years and bad years, I mean,
Right.
basically you're giving me a CAGR that starts at a very low level and,
Yeah.
brings me up to where the economy's good now. Like a more holistic view would be,
Sure.
I think,
So,
more realistic.
I think back to 2000 is where the data I looked at began. And I think I can speak to the numbers of sales. And I think it was about 369,000 RVs were sold in 2000. And now we're moving into 2017 where we have our data, and there were 504,000 units are manufactured. So there's still growth in the industry over that timeline. There was a significant downturn, but we're at a higher rate or a higher level than we were in 2000.
Okay. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Thank you.